It is time to give birth to greatness. Today's podcast episode is very personal for me for a number of reasons. Number one, it is Mother's Day, and I wanted to record this podcast episode specifically on this day. Number two, as many of you are aware, uh, it's deeply personal for me because this is the day I visit my son's gravesite, and I've spent some time at the gravesite visiting him. You all may know that I lost him at the age when he was 23 years old. And I want to have a talk with you all about giving birth to greatness. When I left my son's gravesite today, one of the things that I know that I felt in my spirit is there's no way my son would want me to not live life to the fullest. I believe that not only does God, uh, Jesus, I should say, tell us to live life to the fullest, but I believe that my son would have wanted that for me as well. And I just pray that by the time this podcast episode is over, a fire has been lit inside of you all. And when I say live life to the fullest, I don't mean you get your butt out there and you get to doing some of everything, just messing up all over the place. I mean, live life to the fullest in terms of putting God first, loving others, letting go of fears, walking in the gifts and talents that God has given you, and finally beginning to live life to the fullest. So I'm going to start by reading a little bit from my book, Necessary. It's very, very rare that I even read from chapter 23. You all know that as I was writing Necessary in real time, um, when we lost my son, when I was writing chapter 23, well, before I wrote chapter 23, because he died at the age of 23, and that's why the chapter is called this. But I want to pick up on page 263. I know this is a difficult read for me, but I pray that you all can bear with me as I read through it. This is a vision that I saw in the spirit a few weeks after losing my son. This is literally when I spend time in my secret place. This is literally what happened as I was just sitting in that space and grieving so hard because I could not believe that my son had passed away and so suddenly. And I don't know if you ever been at a point in life where you just don't want God to even touch you. Like you're kind of partly angry, but at the same time, you don't have any other gods to run to. So where else are you going to go, right? And at the same time, you want to embrace God, but you're just too weak to do it. And that's where I was at in this moment. It was actually, I think, the lowest moment I'd ever experienced in my life. But I'm not going to leave you on a low. I'm actually going to leave you on a high. And I'm going to be announcing something a little bit later at the end of this episode that's very, very important. So, and this is a result of all of this. So on page 263 from Necessary, if you have it, you can read along with me. It's titled Chapter 23, and this is a vision that I saw. My vision I saw in the spirit a few weeks after the death of my son. I didn't want God to touch me. I wanted to be angry with him. I wanted God to leave me in the new dark corner I built for myself to call home. I was comfortable in that tiny spot because the world was shut out and I was alone with my new best friend's pain and grief. But he would not leave me alone. He kept standing there with his arms extended, prompting me to take hold of his hand. I turned my back to him because he hurt me. He hurt me by not answering my prayers with a yes. I still love him, but I didn't want him to touch me or ask me to do anything for that matter. He refused my prayers. He answered no to my request to let my son live. So I sat in my corner with my back turned away from his invitation, but he would not leave me alone. I felt as if God was on one side of the room and I was in the same room, but on the other side of the wall. I had no energy to read my Bible. I couldn't even pray. I don't even know if I wanted to pray. I could only moan hums of sorrow and grief. I remember thinking, my answer is still yes to you, Lord. I don't have any other gods to turn to. You are the only living God in my life. But haven't I been through enough long suffering? Was my praise and worship not good enough? Why did you allow my son to die? He only wanted to live. Night after night, I cried myself to sleep. Each morning, I was hoping to see my son standing in front of me, telling me I had had a bad dream and he was fine. That morning never arrived. So I continued to sit in my corner with my back turned away from his invitation. But he would not leave me alone. He did not turn away. He stood there waiting patiently for me, arms extended, gentle, patient, kind, loving, present. I was too weak to pray, so I asked for assistance. I asked the Holy Spirit to pray for me with words that I could not express. I cried and moaned and groaned as he interceded and prayed for me. I don't know what he said, but I believe my prayers were heard because I began to feel my Father gently lifting me up and embracing me. I did not hug him back. I was too weak to hold him. And to be quite honest, I didn't want to hold him, but I was glad he helped me. He wasn't dismayed by my lack of embrace. He acted as if nothing happened, as if he knew who I was becoming. He gently wrapped my limp arms around him and upheld my embrace as he listened to my loud cries of agony until I could cry no more. Then he took me by the hand and began to lead me down a path. Jesus, where are you taking me? He said nothing. So we just walked quietly. He began to walk me through the seasons of my life. Every major trial and difficult season I'd ever experienced appeared before my eyes. It was as if I were the main character in an adventure movie directed by God. I stood in his theater as he played each season of my life, allowing me the time to visit my past dark corners and observe how he provided a way for me to stand. As I observed my life play out before my eyes, I noticed how I began to change from season to season. Something was different about my appearance. In each new scene, I seemed to be clothed with more strength and dignity. Something was different about the way I held my head just a little bit higher as I walked into each new season of my life. I seemed wiser in the way I handled situations. I appeared more courageous than before, and I seemed to grow in my perseverance. In each season that followed, a stronger character started to emerge. Despite all the opposition I endured, I looked more hopeful and, dare I say, faithful as I fought my battles. It was as if each season had a purpose to equip me for the next one. It was as if each season was necessary. I also noticed that I wasn't in any season by myself. While I did not always feel God's presence, he was there all along. Through it all, he stood there waiting patiently for me, arms extended, gentle, patient, kind, loving. Then the Lord did something I did not expect. He took me by the shoulders and turned me around to see who was also watching my seasons. I had no idea the room was filled with spectators. They were all watching me. They all seemed to be observing me from their dark corners. I looked to the Lord with a bit of confusion on my face because I did not understand why a crowd was watching my seasons. I did not understand why they were all standing there like lost sheep looking for us to help them. He said nothing. I stood there for a moment. Then I said, but God, I have nothing to give them. I'm tired. I'm weak. I'm barely hanging on myself. I've been through so much and fought through so many seasons of long suffering. Why would you ask me to help others when I'm fighting to have a relationship with you? How can I possibly help them when I'm in a season of sorrow? I love you, God. And my answer is still yes to your will for my life. And though you have allowed me to be slayed in this season, I still put my trust in you. But how am I able to help anyone when you are my only hope and strength? And all I have to offer is my pain and suffering and my will to stay in the fight and cling to you. The more I spoke those words, the more my spectators began to walk out of their dark places. It was as if they were somehow attracted to the light they saw in us. And somehow, the closer they walk towards us, the brighter they begin to shine. I turned to the Lord once again because I did not understand how He could use such a broken vessel to help others. I asked Him one last question. I said, God, how is it possible that in my darkest season, I am able to help them shine brighter? He said nothing. He only smiled. I'm not going to finish reading through. There's another part in here where it goes into the reflection and the recommended reading, but this is a true situation that happened, a true vision that I saw weeks after losing my son. And this is one of the moments in life when I realized that even in our worst seasons, God can still use us, even in our worst seasons when we feel that we don't have much to offer, especially in this case, being in a season of sorrow. I just had absolutely no idea that there were others watching. And if you all recall, that was around the time I was starting up my podcast. Now I'm going to read a little bit from another chapter. This is the end of necessary. And this is a dedication to my son, something I think I've only read, I think just one time in all of my episodes because it's very hard for me reading it. But I'm going to read this to you all because I think someone needs to hear this. And it's on page 279 if you have my book, if you're following along. In dedication to my loving son, Jared A. Glass. Mama will always love you. I pray you are proud that Mama has done her best to help others come to accept the love of God. Many years ago, God woke me up in the middle of the night and told me I would write a book and it shall be called Necessary. He even showed me exactly what the book should look like. I saw a vision of a black book with only the word necessary on the front cover. I made a note of that and went back to bed. Aside from a few attempts to write some chapters, I didn't get much accomplished. In 2021, several years later, God woke me up again in the middle of the night and told me that now it was the time to start writing that book. As I sat on my bedroom floor at 3 a.m. with a lit candle, I cried like a baby as I started to write because I knew something major was about to happen. I knew God was about to change lives, but I had no idea. Just a few days later, on April 9, 2021, my son would die. I am sure by this point, based on the title of my book, you expected me to tell you that everything you've gone through in your life was necessary. But I don't think it's my place to tell you that. I can only share my life and hope that by the grace of God, you are inspired to draw near to Him despite whatever difficulties you may be experiencing. I do not hold any ministerial titles. I'm simply a woman who loves God with all her heart, and I do my best to walk in obedience to His will for my life. I pray my book has helped you to unlock the greatness inside of you by changing your perspective of how you view difficult seasons in your life. And most importantly, I pray it moves you closer to knowing who you are in the sight of God. I have learned how short and precious life truly is. In fact, I still recall the last words I said to my son on the morning of his death. I was certain I would see his face again later that day, but death does not always make announcements. In the blink of an eye, my life was forever changed. I can't force you to accept Christianity, nor can I force you to desire a deeper relationship with God. I can only share my testimony and pray that it moves you closer to the God in heaven that I serve. So I will end by saying, if you are willing, please make a commitment to follow God and seek the Lord while He may be found. That's Isaiah 55, verse 6. That's Romans 10:9. That's Acts 2:38 and John 3:16. Don't ever allow the enemy to convince you that you are not good enough. Our Father in heaven welcomes you with open arms. Please seek Him while you are still above ground, because tomorrow is promised to no one. For death is the destiny of everyone. The living should take this to heart. That's Ecclesiastes 7, chapter 7, verse 2. I love you all. I want to end by just saying this to you all. It is time that you begin to live life to the fullest and you give birth to the greatness that God has placed within you. I said in the beginning of this podcast episode that I was going to be making an announcement, and I think today is the appropriate day for me to do it. God made it clear to me about 2 or so weeks ago, maybe 2.5, 3 weeks ago. You all just were not aware of this. He finally gave me the green light to have my very first in person Unlocking Greatness retreat for women from all around the world coming together, not only to be in worship with Him, but to grow spiritually and personally, as well as in entrepreneurship. And this is something, if you all have been following or listening to my podcast for years, you all know this is something that not only have many of you requested, but I've wanted to do it. But just like I've told you all many times before, don't ever try to do anything or get anything in the physical that has not first been given to you in the spirit. At least that's my rule. If I don't get it in the spirit, I do not attempt to get it in the physical. And finally, about 2.5 weeks ago, as soon as I woke up, God made it clear to me, you're going to have your very first in person retreat June 13th of this year. And I said, God, that's just literally not even a month or so away from now, from here. And He literally gave me that date. And I know that it may seem odd to you all that how could you put together an in person retreat for people from all around the world so quickly? But I believe that it is time to give birth to the greatness that God has inside of us. And when God gives you a vision or a goal, we are to do what He's called us to do. So I'm happy to announce June 13th of this year, 2026, is the very first in person retreat, the Unlocking Greatness in person retreat for women from all around the world. And you will be able to listen to the live stream. If you're not able to be here in person, anyone can listen to the live stream. So I just want to welcome you all. This is a moment in time in life when we need to make the decisions. Are we going to give birth to the greatness that God has placed inside of us? When I was at my son's gravesite today, and I was just standing there and just having a whole conversation, it just became so clear to me in my spirit. Not only does God want us to live life to the fullest, and I thought to myself as I was talking to my son, He wants mama to live life to the fullest and not to shrink back, not to walk in fear. And I'm telling you all the same thing. Life is so incredibly short and precious, you all. We're not here for that long. And I know it may seem like we are, but we're not here for that long. We really are not. And as I sat there standing in front of my son's burial plot, I looked at the two plots that are next to him, and we have a little sign on there that says selected for before need. Little sign. My husband and I purchased those plots right next to him so we can be next to him. And I sat there and I thought, God, I'm going to give you my all. And just like I told my son when I left his gravesite, Mama's got to go now. Mama's got to go help others find hope in God. So today's the day I'm officially announcing, by the grace of God, the Unlocking Greatness Retreat, the very first in person retreat for women from all around the world, is taking place in the state of Illinois. And you can go to unlockinggreatness.com to find out more about the retreat. And to God be the glory. This is completely 1,000% God doing this. He placed it in my heart, and it's only by His grace. It took me about 2 weeks to even be able to find a hotel near O'Hare Airport and get everything booked. And it's just amazing what God is doing. And I am walking by faith. God has just made it very clear to me I need to walk in obedience to what He's called me to do. I pray to God that I see many of you at the upcoming Unlocking Greatness retreat, the in-person retreat. And I pray that in listening to this message, you all make a decision that you're going to give birth to the greatness that God has placed inside of you. Life is short. And even when we're going through some of our most difficult seasons in life, I want you all to be reminded and encouraged to know God can still use you. God can still use you. I love you all tremendously. You're listening to Unlocking Greatness podcast with Zenja Glass. Be encouraged. And to my sisters all around the world, I look forward to giving you all some of the biggest hugs for those of you who are able to make it. And if you're able to join the live stream, I look forward to talking to you all. I love you. I love you. I love you. Thank you for taking some time to listen to me read one of the most personal chapters from my book, Necessary. I love you all.